welcome. My name is Amy Rogers, and for those of you that don't know me, I'm the director of the C program, and we are so excited to have Leanna Lee Johnson here. She has been with C, attended many years ago as a student, I think the very first time you came, and has been involved with it in a variety of different ways over the years, from presenting, helping with a cool video project one year that we did, and everything. So excited to have her here. She has a wealth of different experience in her background, and is going to be able to share with that, and is really kind of that entrepreneur at heart, in all that she does. So welcome, Leanna. I'm going to hand it over to you and let you kind of share with the audience a little bit more about yourself and what your focus is today.
Thank you, Amy. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. My name is Leanna Johnson Lee, and I'm a content marketing writer, journalist, and business wellness advocate. So on the writing side, I specialize in the future of work, tech, finance, and wellness. I've been freelancing for about 8 years now, started in college. And then after college, I started my own business. I've been in business for 5 years now. And part of my platform or brand, you could say, is mental wellness for business owners and entrepreneurs. So that's something I speak about pretty regularly. I co-host a podcast on the same topic with mental health speaker Mike Veny. And as a disabled business owner and writer, it's something that is very dear to my heart. But I'm also very practical person. So the practicalities of business and business structure really kind of delight me and excite me. So that is a little bit kind of a short, soft intro into what we're talking about today. Since we do have quite a few people in person, which is exciting. I wasn't necessarily expecting this many. I am going to give a quick caveat. I'm actually having a rather bad mental health week. So I might speak a little slower. I might look a bit tired. This is something I've dealt with most of my life, and I think it's important to just be upfront if you're having a bad day. So that's something that I just want to pass on to you. It's totally fine, totally normal for me. I go through depressive anxiety cycles pretty regularly. And this is just a slump. So I want to bring that up because I think it's important. And to illustrate the fact that building a business that supports you is an ongoing process. And it's something that I continually have to prioritize. This is not me saying, hey, I figured it out. Learn from me. This is, hey, I've picked up some stuff along the way, and you might want to look into it because it does work. You just have to keep working at it. So a lot of what we talk about today are things that I need to be reminded of and work on myself. So I'm taking mental notes. Thank God I have an outline because I need all these notes. So to our topic, today's chat focuses on highlighting the differences between working a freelance job and building a business, and adjusting that mindset or approach to support healthy business growth. So let's start with a few definitions. What do I mean by freelance job? Well, to me, a freelance job is what I started out doing in college, 8 years ago. It's a career choice where you work independently, you have projects and clients, but you're still kind of living paycheck to paycheck, and you're kind of struggling to find time to build a healthy structure that can run without you, because you're doing literally everything yourself. You're wearing a million different hats. You're constantly busy. You're constantly trying to find work, and you're constantly overworked at the same time. It's a weird combination. So then what do I mean by business? By contrast, a business is this structure that you've created to serve your personal needs, like mental health, for example, and we'll get to that a little later. Serve your personal needs, future goals, and it also leaves room for growth and profitability. So freelance job is more a structure that has kind of grown around you and that you may not have complete control over, and a business is something that you start controlling and then use to drive forward your goals and serve your needs. So kind of based on my experience as a freelancer and then business owner, and I make that distinction because I do believe in that mindset shift. I do believe that I made a shift when I registered my business 5 years ago. It wasn't an instant shift, but over the years I've had to make that mindset change, and still do today, if I'm honest. So based on that experience and my experiences working with so many business owners over the years, I found that there are basically 3 major areas that suffer the most, really, when you have this freelance job mindset versus being in business mode, building a business mode. And those are scheduling, finances and customer relationships, and business systems. So you could probably lump client customer relationships into one, and then finances can be a part of either the relationships or the business systems. But essentially it's scheduling, relationships with your clients, and business systems. So let's take a look at each of these, and we'll examine kind of what they look like from a freelance job perspective, what they look like from a business perspective, and how you can make that shift into business mode. And again, as I said, I really enjoy this practical approach to business. So when I think about, my platform is about mental wellness and mental health. So when I think about how I can best serve myself, I always come back to these practical strategies, because on the one hand, you're obviously, if you struggle with mental health, or if you struggle with a mental health disabilities like I do, taking care of yourself is hugely, hugely important, right? It's quite critical in some cases. And when you work for yourself or by yourself, I believe it's just as critical, especially when you are building this structure. So it's even more important, if you deal with mental health, to build a structure that serves you. So that's kind of my perspective on it. Everyone's will be different, of course, but I firmly believe that having this healthier structure can serve you both personally and professionally. So enough rambling, let's get to it. By the way, if anyone has questions at any point, feel free to shout out. I'm cool with being casual. We can also, you can also feel free to save it till the end. But if something comes to you, just don't wait, just go for it. So let's start with scheduling. Scheduling, when you have a freelance job mindset, says, I'll get it done when I can or when the client wants it. So you are kind of at the mercy of, whenever you can fit it in around, say, school, other work, whatever the case may be, or you're at the mercy of your client. Business mode says, I determine the timing that works best for me and my situation. So you see the difference there. There's, in one side, the power is all with these environmental factors, what's going on around you, who's paying you, and therefore kind of controlling your time. And the other focuses on what you need and build up from there. What you need and builds up from there. Sorry about that. So how do you make the shift? Well, the shift really comes down to creating a schedule that works for you. And so to illustrate this, if I were to say my chronotype is bear, would anyone have any idea what I'm talking about? Feel free to unmute if you do. Amy doesn't.
You don't
Okay,
have
so
any time, no time.
huh?
You don't have any time. You're out of
If
time. You're
if
out
I
of
say okay, if I say my chronotype is bear, you say you think I don't have any time.
correct.
Okay. Not exactly, but good guess. Chronotype is actually an illustrative example of how our natural energy works throughout the day. So when I say my chronotype is bear, I'm one of 4 chronotypes that are illustrated as different animals. And bear is the one that wakes up and goes to sleep with the sun. So they have a very natural kind of day-to-day cycle. And as a bear chronotype, I wake up early, My productivity levels are higher in the morning. So I have like a window of time in the morning where I'm most productive. I can get the most done. And then I have a dip in the afternoon and then maybe come back a little bit during the evening before going to bed relatively early again. So I've shared, Amy, I shared a summary of this from Healthline if you want to learn more about chronotypes. But essentially, what I'm trying to get at here is that creating a schedule works for you really starts with you, who you are, how you work, how your energy, when are you energized throughout the day? When are you just exhausted? Research shows that people can be generally productive for about, well, when I say productive, I mean productive on sort of intensive creative tasks for about 3 hours a day. Obviously, that doesn't quite add up to the general 8-hour workday. So that's something you kind of have to consider when you're thinking about your ideal schedule and how that fits into your business. So 3 hours a day for really intensive tasks. And then we can focus on overall on work-related tasks, heavier tasks and lighter tasks for another couple of hours. So we've got about 5 to 5.5 hours of productive work time a day. So if you can imagine fitting your entire workday into 5 hours, that's basically what it would look like. So I say this to give you a sense, to start to give you a sense of how you can structure a schedule that works best for your specific needs. So as I said, I'm a bear type. I tend to wake with the sun and then get sleepy when I get, when the sun goes down. So I have this limited time frame to work in. And I know that I have productive time between these hours and these hours. So when you think about that, you see a kind of pattern start to emerge of when you are most likely to get the most done. And if you have extra special needs, like with me, it's mental health, you also have to recognize when you're most likely, mental health often crops up and often is exacerbated when you're tired or stressed. So I have to keep that in mind as I'm working through figuring out my ideal schedule for the day. And often it's a day-to-day question. How are you feeling? How much can I get done? So think about creating an ideal work schedule for yourself based on your natural energy cycles. And consider how you can dedicate a work schedule, have dedicated work days. And, as I've said, we have about 5 to 5.5 hours to be productive every day. So that might start to give you an idea of how many hours and what hours that you can work best. That's to start to give you an idea of how moving from a freelance job to business mindset happens when you create a schedule that works for you, that works best for you. And that starts by looking at when you work best and how you work best. So this is a little bit, client customer relationships focuses a little bit more on how you work and with whom you work. So with client and customer relationships, the freelance job mindset would be, I'll get work where I can and make it work, even if it sucks, because obviously you need the money. Business mode, however, says, I need good clients to do good business. So I'm going to set my own terms. So that is the mindset that the shift that we want to make when we're heading from this business job mindset into building a business. So how do you make the shift? You make the shift by working with clients or customers who will treat you well. And this is a very tall order, and it's easier said than done, so bear with me here. But unfortunately, it also still starts with you. There's no kind of magic formula here. It starts with you, like with your schedule, where you're looking internally and you're saying, well, this is what I need, and this is how I work, so this is what I have to work with. You are setting your own standards for rates, customer relationships, client relationships, and how you approach clients. So let's take a little closer look at the rate question. So when you think about a project or a client that you're working with, a piece that you're selling, a performance you want to be a part of, whatever the case may be, product that you're working on, the question arises, what do I need to charge, right? And there's so many different ways of doing this, right? And there's so many factors that go into rates. You know, you're looking at what your financial needs are. What do I need to pay the bills? You're looking at your cost of goods or operational expenses. You're looking at your level of expertise and experience in your field. What do you bring to the table? What are your unique qualities that a client will pay extra for? You know, you're looking at, again, you're looking at your schedule. You know, how much time do I have for this? If I don't have much time, can I charge premium rates for what I consider to be a rush job? And then that's not even getting into the project itself. You know, if it's a project that you are quoting for or trying to figure out what to charge for, there are so many other different factors, like the million different details that go into a project, from when it's due to what the scope is to how much support you'll get from your client or customer. So with all of these factors, I find that having a base internal hourly rate is extremely helpful to not only get me out of that freelance job mindset of, oh, it's work, I got to grab it, because that's a feast famine issue. And that's sort of stepping back and saying, okay, so this is the minimum that I need, and that's what they're willing to pay. Is it a good fit? So before I get ahead of myself, let's take a quick look at internal hourly structure. So internally hour structure for me depends on, again, my financial needs, my experience in my field, my business needs, and the time that I have to work with. So that can shift month to month, but for the most part, it increases over time as I gain experience and expertise in an area. So to give you an example, I've been a writer for about 6 years now. 6+ years now. So my internal hourly rate has changed. It's, you know, increased over time as I've built up experience in my areas of expertise, which, you know, tech, finance, future of work, wellness, those different topics. And it also changes depending on my living expenses. It'll increase if I start using more software for my business. It increases if I hire someone on. So you can see how it can change over time and fluctuate. But for the most part, you want it to slowly increase over time to make your business more profitable, but to also reflect how much work and resources and time that you've put into your business and to offering these products or services to your clients or customers. So, and then another thing that I always think of, another thing to remind yourself of, is that you're not alone. You know, you're not an island in all this. You are one of many, many professionals in your field, generally speaking, unless you're in a highly specialized field. So once you have that internal hourly rate in mind, or if you still aren't quite sure what to charge for something, go to the network, go to fellow professionals in your field. I go to other writers, I go to other creatives, and I say, you know, I'm thinking of charging this for this. What would you charge for it? Or do you think this is a good rate? And, you know, sometimes they'll share their rates with me. Sometimes they'll say, you know, they'll ask me questions about what I think of this, you know, what, have I thought about that? Have I included this? And it helps me kind of build out that rate in my head and then come up with a stronger number. So rate is just one side of the customer relationship, though. Another question that you have to consider is, what do I need from a client or customer relationship to work well, stress-free? You know, we all want stress-free relationships with, you know, working relationships, right? So this will look different for everyone. But it's so important that you set this structure for yourself ahead of time, to set these expectations, because then what you're doing is you are creating a template for yourself for future clients. And I can promise you that every freelancer in the world ever has had shitty, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to swear, but whatevs, bad client relationships. And I've had quite a few myself. But what I found is the more expectations I set for myself, the more of a structure I have about what I expect from clients and what I want from an ideal client, the fewer bad relationships that I run into. Because over time, as you have this template in the back of your mind, these standards, you start noticing, you start picking up on cues, you start noticing red flags a little quicker, and you're able to steer clear of a lot of bad working relationships. So for me, a good client working relationships means being relatively hands-off, because I don't like a ton of direction. And I like being able to just get things done when I need to get them done and turn them in on the deadline. I like people to be easy to work with and communicative, but not demanding. And I also, another big one is understanding. You know, if I'm having a bad mental health day, or if something comes up, or if there's an emergency, I need them to say, oh yeah, no problem, go take care of it. Because if I have to choose between being horribly stressed out because I'm not only in the middle of a personal emergency, but now I'm in the middle of a work emergency as well, that's not a great client relationship. That's a shitty client relationship. So something to think about is just start jotting ideas down about what a good client or customer relationship looks like for you. If you're already in business, if you've already had that experience, then think back to some of those relationships that worked really well for you or didn't work well for you, and see if you can figure out why that is. Again, another question that you can go to fellow business owners, fellow freelancers, for honest feedback, because I promise you, everyone has stories, good stories and bad stories. And it's one great thing about having that network and having that support system is it allows you to workshop some of these issues and learn from them. So even if you end up in a bad situation, you can often, gain insights from it. And then I'd be like, oh, okay, well, that went so badly. Adding that to my list of never working with that sort of person again. And it works for me. That's how I've built a list. And when all said and done, even if you have this perfect internal hourly rate structure, even if you have a great idea of what you want your customer relationship to look like, it's finding those clients is still a trial and error process. So, and there's no magic equation, there's no magic process for that. If you want to know more about my experiences, or if you have specific questions about those relationships and how you can find better projects, better clients, better customers, feel free to throw up your hand and ask. We can talk about it at the end of the workshop, or you can just contact me. Amy, I don't know if they have my email address or any way to get a hold of me on social media, but if you can make that happen, or just make sure they have that, feel free to get in touch, because that's a longer conversation. All right, so we've discussed scheduling, we have discussed customer and client relationships, and the third part of that, the third major area that I want to touch on is business systems. And I'll define that in a sec. But first, the freelance job approach to business systems is very haphazard. I'll do what it takes to make it happen, even if I have to do it all myself. Like, I remember this so clearly, and I remember this today because it still happens, and where you're constantly overwhelmed and you're like, oh, there's so much to do. My to-do list is 10 pages long if you do to-do lists like I do. And I don't know how to get out of this rut because I'm always doing everything and I'm so overwhelmed and I'm burnt out. So that's what the freelance job mindset looks like. Even as business owners still struggle with it. Ideally, your business mindset will look like or sound like this. My time is valuable, so I will set up systems that can work without me so I can concentrate on growing my business. So that, again, that's stepping back, taking a look at what you need, what needs to be done in order to help automate things a little bit. You may not be in a position to automate your business entirely. I'm certainly not. But you can set up systems that will help automate smaller things and free up your time. So making the shift, making the shift means setting up systems to support your growth. So these systems are basically, again, helping you automate manual or repetitive tasks so you can focus on more strategic areas of business. Now, this can mean pretty much anything you can imagine. This can mean setting up a better bookkeeping system, whether it's software-based or spreadsheet-based. This can mean using tools that will help you get work done quicker, whether that is a project management platform or, a cool email tool like Boomerang. So it's whatever work you need to do, these systems can help you do it faster or ensure that you don't necessarily need to do it yourself. You can train someone to use the system to do it, but the important thing is to have that system or process in place. And then another advantage is that it helps you build a buffer of both time, where you have additional time for billable work, because none of your business work is billable outside of client or customer hours, right? So it's helping you build that buffer of time. So you're creating more time to use to find billable work or work on it and make money, or you can build a buffer of money, which means setting up systems that help automate your finances so that you're in a better place financially. And I'll talk about the advantages of that in just a second. So essentially, you have more free time, actions are accomplished seamlessly, and that means less pressure on you and less friction in your business. So here are a few examples. And I have example 2, example 1, and example 3 for some reason. Whoops. So example 1 would be tracking your projects or product development, or if you're part of performance, for example, tracking the time that you spend on producing and rehearsing for that. So tracking your projects and every minute during work hours to see where your time is going. So, I use tools like Pomodoro and Toggle, and I know many others use a bunch of different tools too. Pomodoro helps you time projects so that you can get more done in less time. And Toggle, of course, just tracks what you're doing to get a sense of how long you spend on certain things without actually trying to control how much time. But they both give you excellent insights into where your time is going. So that can give you a sense that can help you set you up to build a good system. So another example of a business system that can help is automating email or social media scheduling. So I'm sure you all know the myriad of tools that are out there, but like Buffer, Hootsuite, Sprout Social, all of those, Mail Tracker. I mean, there's so many. But what they do, if you have a marketing plan or strategy that relies on social media or newsletters or emails, then these help you track emails, track social media posts, publish and schedule social media posts. It just saves you time and it gives you valuable insights, because when you're not using these tools that have advanced data analytics and analytical tools, then you're kind of missing out, and you're kind of you still get the job done, but you're missing out on those growth opportunities where you can learn from insights. So that's kind of a second portion of that. And then another tool I can think of is Zapier, where you can actually connect apps. So if any of you are familiar with If This Then That, Zapier is built on the same principle, these little applets that connect to solutions. So I have one, for example, that connects, what does it do? It connects the tool that I use to find emails on LinkedIn to my project management platform. So if I find an email, then it automatically sends it to my project management platform, and I automatically have new contacts. So that saves me time. It saves me literally minutes each time. And it's a great way to automate, a great example of a system that automates my work. And then the third example, this is slightly less and this is more finance focused, I should say, than software integration or automation focused, but it still counts. So it's building savings into your business finances to create an income buffer. And what this does is that it reduces financial stress, which as freelancers or business owners, we're all familiar with. It also gives you a better platform for negotiation, because what you're not doing is falling into the feast famine cycle of being overworked and then having no work because you didn't have time to market yourself. And then you're desperate for work, so you take whatever work is there, and then you end up being overworked again. So having that income buffer helps you, kind of smooths over those ebbs and flows, but it also puts you in a better position to negotiate higher rates, because what you're not doing is coming to someone when you're desperate for work or money. So it's a great bargaining tool. It's one of my favorite bargaining tools, actually, because your clients never have to know about it. It's just something you have in the back of your head. I can do this because I have a buffer. So yeah, so that's my little spiel on savings. But how do you do that though? So I work with a version of the Profit First system for my finances, and Amy, this is one of the links that I sent you to share. Getstoryshots.com. So the link is a quick summary of the Profit First book, and it summarizes this system. So Profit First essentially helps you break down your expenses, your personal expenses, your business expenses, and then other business necessities like taxes into equations, into percentages. So then when you have money coming in, you can just divide those payments into percentages and automate finances, really, is how it works. So one that I like to use, or one that works for savings, if you are building savings into your business finances, goes something like this. You have a percentage for living expenses. It's called owner's compensation, and that's based on your average budget or monthly spending. So that's one. The second one, it's plus. Second percentage is business costs, including taxes, so operating expenses. And then you have a percentage for savings. And then I like to include a buffer of 20 to 25%, because you never know what other expenses might come in. So then that gives you a sense of not only how you divide your payments up, but how you create income goals. So if I, for example, say $2,000 in living expenses and $1,000 for business costs, and I want to save $500 a month, that's what? So $3,500 plus 25%, that would be my income goal for the month. And if I receive, say $5,000 or $6,000 in payments, then I know that this percentage goes to living expenses, this percentage to operating expenses, this percentage to savings, and these percentages to other categories. And that you don't have to think about it. You don't have to calculate it much. You just automate it. So that is one of my favorite tools, because it gives me that peace of mind, but also gives me a great structure for setting myself up for success. So I really encourage you to check out Profit First. The system as is not really structured for freelancers. It sort of it's sort of based on brick and mortar businesses, but the general structure is sound. So take a look at, how he sets it up, how Mike McCallowitz sets it up, and see how you can apply that to your own business finances. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I hope that this has given you kind of a clear idea of how easy it is to get stuck in the freelance job versus business mindset, and that it is a fluid condition. It's something I deal with all the time, especially if I'm stuck in a mental health rut. I quickly fall back on old habits. But the thing I love most about making that switch in my head is that taking care of my business really means taking care of myself and setting myself up for my own future. So I believe that every business owner should be served by their businesses. You know, your business should serve you, not the other way around. So if you're focusing on healthy structures and systems that put your personal needs ahead of what you think business needs should be, you have that space to focus on healthier growth and living well. So yeah, that's it for me. Thank you so much for listening so nicely and quietly. Who has the first question?
Christopher asks, the mental health aspect of self-employment is something that does not get discussed as much as it should. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think this last year with COVID has even heightened that and some awareness. So the podcast is great, but I'm going to let Leanna comment on that as well.
And this is why this is something that I care so much about, because it literally, my livelihood depends on it. And in some, as artists, yes, I think artists do have a tendency towards depression. I have situational depression and anxiety. I also have PTSD, which is, you know, rather different, but still a bit of a daily struggle. So I'm constantly kind of bopping back and forth between PTSD triggers and depression anxiety cycles. And it is rough. I've been dealing with PTSD for close to 10 years now, and anxiety and depression for over 15 years. So watching people deal with this during COVID has been an education. It was also very educational to realize that personal trauma is extraordinarily different to shared trauma. And that going through just a blanket worldwide experience where you experience, you know, low level, constant anxiety, constant slight or severe depression, and just these small traumatic incidents like having panic attacks in parking lots because you have to wear a mask in a grocery store for the first time, those are really they take some getting used to. So I know for me it took some getting used to, and I really hope that the COVID situation, the remote work situation, the now we have to do everything from home situation has caused people to really examine their mental health and think about their needs and how they can focus not only their businesses, but their work lives, their personal lives, to prioritize that a bit more. And actually, two other links that I sent to you to send to Amy. One is Mind Check, which is a free tool to help you assess your own mental health. And then the other is Leapers, which is an international community of freelancers who come together to talk about mental health and to just support each other. So I encourage you to check those out. Yeah, connecting. Yeah, that's been rough. Virtual connections, of course, are great. Don't necessarily make up for in-person connections. I am a diehard introvert, so I'm actually fine with virtual connections, but even I miss people once in a while. So I can certainly speak to that. Any other questions or comments? If I went too quickly, or if there's something that you need clarified, feel free to ask now, or again, you can get in touch with me and I can give you fuller answers. What are some ways to better engage in community among fellow entrepreneurs virtually and eventually in person? Great question. So what platforms are you most active on, really, is a good place to start. Think about, again, it all comes back to you and how do you communicate. Would you prefer an audio-based platform like Clubhouse? Do you prefer something more social like Snapchat? Do you like instant messaging and therefore Slack is your thing? I mean, there are freelance entrepreneur communities for every channel you can possibly think of. So think about the channels that you're most comfortable on, most active in. And, you know, Twitter has journalist, writer Twitter lists that I can be a part of. You know, they have, Instagram has artist communities, you know, Facebook has, you know, I'm in a bunch of writer Facebook groups. So it really depends and relies on those channels that you enjoy most. And if you aren't much of a social media person, Mighty Networks is an app that a bunch of different entrepreneur groups have created networks on. You have to join the network, and then they add you to Mighty Networks. But yeah, so I encourage you to start with channels that you're most comfortable with. And then, obviously do some Googling, but Leapers is a fantastic, they're a Slack community. C, of course, has a bunch of stuff going on where you can connect with other artists and entrepreneurs in your age group. What else? Yeah, I mean, I'm a Facebook girl. I started Facebook when it really first became a thing. So that's where I'm most comfortable. So I'm in a lot of those Facebook groups. And yeah, it really depends. But I encourage you to thinking about in-person meetups. I think, well, Meetup really. I think Meetup is still a good place, a good start, because they also do a lot of virtual meetings now. If you are into tech at all, I recommend Built-in. They're a news platform. They promote jobs, but they also have a bunch of events. So think about not only communities that you can join in your field, but also industry events where you can meet the same people that you would come across in those communities. And then, yeah, so for in-person events, again, just kind of look around what's going on in your field. Co-working spaces, that was the other one. I'm also part of a virtual co-working space. I do sprint co-working sessions twice a week. So look into the virtual co-working spaces that are, and in fact, there's one I can think of. Aville Co-working is one, Aville. They're local to Chicago, but they're virtual at the moment. So you could join there. I think their membership is starting up in the next month or so, but they're a great platform. That's the one I'm part of. And then if you just want a place to connect with other workers, other freelancers or entrepreneurs and get stuff done, Complice.co offers a bunch of virtual rooms, and some of them are just for working, but some of them encourage socialization, so you can literally connect with people. Also, there's another cool one that I've tried recently called Lunch Club, where you sign up for certain time slots, and they'll ask you questions about yourself and everything, and they will set you up to talk with just a stranger. You'll have like a 45-minute call session on Google Meets or Zoom. And my first call was last Saturday, and I talked to a sustainability startup founder in London, which was super cool. So we talked about weed mostly, but also music and his business, which is cool. So I highly recommend that. And then things like meetups and co-working spaces, Meetup and co-working spaces will help you transition more from these virtual events to in-person events, because those are the spaces that are likely to have both and to transition into both. Sorry, that was long-winded, but I had apparently a lot of thoughts about that. Thank you so much for joining. Again, if you have any questions, any follow-up thoughts, please do feel free to get in touch. Connect with me on social media. I'm Leanna Lost on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn as I think LL Writer. So feel free to connect with me there, and hopefully we'll be in touch. But otherwise, please enjoy the upcoming conference and see events.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, as always, Leanna. Just what a wonderful wealth of information, honesty, openness, and just thank you so much.
Of course. Take care, everyone. Bye.